Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Yuzral, and this is Night of the Comet, the fifth and final part of the Devidian series, and also temporarily the final episode of These Are the Voyages. We're following on from last week's episode, so more or less it's what we initially thought. We are going back in time, once again, to finally put an end to the Devidian menace, or at least their tendency to use the neutral zone as a gigantic interstellar takeaway. Yes, indeed. One of these days they're going to have to find a solution to the munchies. Anyway, the first stage of this is a nice little homage to Star Trek 4. We get to perform a temporal slingshot. Yes, I'm sure Trekkies everywhere are now gnashing their teeth because I failed to mention that it first appeared in the original series. However, it's the same premise. Fly around a star, hit the impulse drive, and then somehow go back in time and get a weird, trippy 80s CGI sequence. Well, one time out of three at any rate. We're also getting a hollow emitter and various codes to allow us to fake up being a D7 in the service of the House of Duras, just so nobody asks questions about what a bird of prey from 2410 was doing in 2265. Anyway, this sequence is pretty simple. Go to full impulse first, hit the first ring, and then your ship gets a kick up the backside. The solution to this one is just to have a light touch on the controls. Just use the A and D keys or mouse steering. You don't need to do much in the Z-plane. You don't need to be particularly accurate here either. I got to within 100 metres of the nav beacon at the end, and it still activated the jump. However, some people did report trouble with that, so perhaps heavy cruisers are having an issue with it. I don't know. My Excelsior retrofit certainly didn't have an issue with making that jump. We find ourselves back at Drozana Station and squaring off with the USS Royben James, and here we have a demonstration as to why only one of 12 Constitution starships survived the original 5-year mission programs, because it's squaring up to a vessel that is 150 years ahead of it. For those of you who want a similar comparison, imagine standing, I don't know, the USS Monitor up against a Type 45 destroyer. Yeah, it's pretty horribly one-sided. Interestingly, this turns into an issue in the second part of the movie when we look at the final space battle, because, yeah, right now, that old Tier 0 Constitution is the most advanced ship in Starfleet, but by our standards, it's what? A baseline cruiser with a couple of Mark 1 weapons. Shouldn't be a threat. Okay, this part I'm going to play through at triple speed. It is a standard Devidian away mission, so while my team are happily massacring their way through the first pack, it's probably a good idea to recap on the whole series. Oh yeah, 4-faction all-for-all bar fight. Gotta love them. This is fun. Actually just turns into a mass of enemies, but with the happy fact that they might help you out against each other. So it's all good fun, really. Yeah. Smack, bang, wallop. So the series as a whole, it's certainly given us an unusual opponent in the Devidians, because their motivations aren't really like anybody else. Even the Borg, who are unusual in that they want to assimilate rather than conquer. Or maybe that's just an extreme version of conquering. I don't know, it depends on semantics, I suppose. But the Devidians have one motivation, and that is lunch. So, are we going to be seeing them again? I mean, we've seen the Borg make the jump into the star cluster missions, and sometimes that hasn't worked smoothly. I know for a fact I've had star cluster missions where the Borg was somehow digging up archaeological artefacts from the third era of their history, and it's quite obviously just taken the mission template, imported in a random race, and that random race has happened to be the Borg. And as a result, with some of the more unusual races, the Devidians are one of these because they just care about using us for food and don't care about technology or territory or anything else, save as it serves that desire for food, they won't necessarily fit. You're going to get the same jarring sense that the dev team really have just picked a random map template, a random antagonist race, and just bodged the two together. So if we are going to see the Devidians make a comeback, I would say please don't put them into the star clusters, because it's going to feel wrong, for want of a better term. Anyway, Devidians dealt with, and we have the Shrouded Phantasm. Here's the nearest thing they have to a boss. Break the door, and it's a pretty standard boss fight. If you remember the Phantasm from episode 1 Skirmish, he is basically the same, except that he has a few more hit points and attacks a little bit harder. But frankly, it's nothing we haven't seen before, so focus fire to bring him down, and well, hey, hello Scotty. Yes indeed, Cryptic are clearly getting more confident in their product if they're willing to name check various major individuals like this and actually dare to feature them in the game. Although I'm not sure how they're getting around the likeness copyright problems they've alluded to. It may help that James Doohan and DeForest Kelley are both dead. Anyway, that has to be the quickest clean-up of a bar fight in history. Cassidy won't give us a part until she's got a drink. The bartender doesn't want to know. So we go back to our expert on all things alcoholic. You know him, the man, the legend, Scotty, the only person ever to drink an extragalactic abomination under the table. Anyway, he will tell you a great deal about what he and Cassidy have been drinking together, and for the record, I am truly impressed that he packed that into one shore leave. But clustered within all of those anecdotes is the information you need for what is basically yet another memory game. Now, I'm going to mix in the Starfleet run-through I did here because it shows a problem with putting 5 people into a one-person problem. Yes, folks, 5 captains, 1 bartender, and 1 glass. So it's anyone's guess whose drink order you're actually getting. It actually gets to the point where someone hit the right combination eventually, despite a certain amount of discussion on TeamSpeak. And yeah, you can see that one of our colleagues does eventually take off, get the glass, give it to her, and gets the drink right. But yeah, this is one of the problems with doing what is essentially a solo puzzle in team mode, because the tendency of MMO players the world over is to charge straight at whatever puzzle they are given. This isn't a problem in solo mode, it isn't usually a problem in a combat situation, but in this case it's an issue because there's only the 1 glass. You've no guarantee that the drink you pick up is the drink you ordered. So 2 solutions here. The first would be to have the bartender put the drink straight into your inventory. The second is basically to tell the players only 1 person does this at a time, and the other 4 of you can just stand around and give advice. Anyway, with the shields fixed, we are going back into space to destroy Driffin's Comet once and for all. That will be the second half of this video, and I'll see you very shortly for that.